Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 with Real Food Recovery. We're so glad that you are here with us. This episode is devoted to a day in the life of an addict. Is there hope for me? So we want to go ahead and just get started with that. I guess first, let me say hi to Jamie. Good morning to her. She is coming to us from Houston, and I'm in
Hello.
Wichita, Kansas. How are you doing this morning?
Doing good, Paige. How are you?
Good. Just happy to be here and excited to get this started. And we're both just so I call it overflowing with bubbles about just being able to talk to people about our experiences and sharing what we know to help other people really get a better life. We're just here to help people have a better life. So
That's right.
one of the topics that comes up often is what is it like for you, just a typical day in the depths of addiction? What does that look like? What does it feel like? Um,
A great question.
yeah, I don't, do you want me to start or do you want to start?
I'm going to have you start, I think, because I really just want our listeners to hear when we share our stories, we have such different experiences. But I don't want to just focus on the differences because there are so many similarities. Like our stories might look different in the material ways that they manifested, but the way that the food addiction progressed, the way the food addiction stole our thought life and stole our emotions and stole really our intentions for life for so long, that was exactly the same. And I want to, we'll come back to that, but it's so interesting. We do have such different experiences with the addiction and life in general. But there's so many similarities in the way that this addiction took hold.
That is fascinating to me that you just said that statement about it stole.
Oh,
Can you
yeah.
imagine what our lives would have been
Mm.
had the distraction of addiction not robbed us of time, brain power, energy, thought? I mean, my whole life was organized around my addiction because every room you go into, the addiction is scanning the room, is taking
Right.
inventory of what's going on in there. Are there opportunities? Are there not opportunities? So it's just
That's right.
fascinating to me that you just said that. Anyway, so yeah, I'll start out as far as me. A day in the life of my addiction it really was in my mind at the forefront, not in the back, but at the forefront from the minute my eyeballs would open till they would close at night. And even when I'm asleep, it seems like there was some energy given then too about dreaming about it and
Yep.
just wrestling with it. It's just a constant fight and wrestle. I heard a story once in our recovery community about this guy who was in a 12-step program. I'm not exactly sure what he was there for, but one of the things that he did in order to help recover was he led meetings
Mhm.
to help keep him safe. And we know that's a part of recovery too, to give
Yes.
back. And the way he described it to the group for him is his addiction chased him 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And when I heard that story, I thought, that's it. I've never been able to articulate or exactly put the verbiage
Mhm.
to what my experience was, but that is exactly what it was. It's somebody is chasing me with a weapon, and it is a weapon to harm me. And I was just trying to figure my way out of this. And
Mhm.
I didn't have the tools to do it. I didn't have the understanding to do it. So I'm just in the fetal position most of the time. On the outside, I look very put together. On the inside, just in excruciating pain when it came to food because all I wanted to do was eat. And I knew that was socially unacceptable. I was very vain. I wanted to make sure my weight didn't get out of control, way over exercising all the time, whatever I could do to maintain the weight so I could feel comfortable in social situations
Sure.
and just within myself. So chasing is the best word I know. And this wasn't just a day or two. This is for decades. I'll be
Yeah.
60. I'll be 60 in a few months. And it really wasn't until these past few years that I've really gotten to a place where I could be comfortable in a day. And not that it's perfect. There, I still have to manage my recovery. I will never be recovered. It will always be a
That's right.
management for me. And I thought for several years I tried to go from sugar was my drug of choice. Sugar is
Mhm.
the most addictive drug in the universe. Lab rats choose sugar over cocaine every single time. So I thought if I went from sugar to plant-based sweeteners, there's the ticket. There's always that
Right.
next new diet, that next
Oh
new
yeah.
program. There's the ticket.
Yeah.
That'll get me to freedom. And you've got that uh diet energy in the beginning of every program that you're on a high for the next week or two, and then that slowly fades and goes away. But um plant-based sweetener still just kept the cravings alive for me. I thought that was going to be the end all. There's the ticket. Now finally I found the answer. that
Yeah.
that wasn't it. The name of our podcast is Real Food Recovery. It has to be real food. Otherwise, the brain just recognizes the plant-based sweeteners as it doesn't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't know that it's calorie free and it's still searching. It just sends out signals still searching. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty much it. It just took up a lot of my bandwidth. Terrified to go on vacation, terrified of the weekend, terrified of any gathering. And I just remember thinking to myself, I could just get this under control. I would want to go on vacation. But the thought of vacation is so horrifying because I don't know what I'm going to do. That's part of
Mhm.
the trauma and the terrors. I don't know what's going to happen. It's
Absolutely.
that free fall on that first on the what do you call it? The roller coaster. You're going up
Mhm.
and it's just free fall. That you are just free falling, and you feel like a victim of the circumstances.
Absolutely.
You have no control. So
Absolutely.
that's the fun story of what a day in my life was like. What's it like for you?
Gosh, there's so much I identify with that you shared. For me, I was, now keep in mind, I did not have I used food and I used my weight as a way, and this is of course subconscious, and I did not connect it all until I was, well into recovery. But I used food and my weight as a way to protect me, right? I thought if I'm overweight, I can't get hurt, or I won't get preyed upon. And that's what I thought. All of it was subconscious, but I used food as a way to build up body fat around me. And I used it as a way to keep myself, what I thought, keep myself sort of insulated from life. And of course, I know now that that is just such a dysfunctional mindset, right? But I didn't know I had it. I just knew that I needed to keep eating, and I was driven to keep eating. So from the minute I woke up to the minute I went to bed, I was constantly thinking about food, what I could eat next, where I could get it, how I could make it. Will they see me eating it? And I would have, it's so funny. I see so many, so much of myself and other people. I was obese and morbidly obese all of my life. I mean, since I was an infant, I was comfort eating. My mom was actually told by my pediatrician, he told her, you need to start wearing a jumper or overalls so Jamie can't get in. I was just constantly wanting to nurse. And I was obese from infancy. And so
Oh,
it's so oh yeah. It's
you
so
never had a normal weight
no.
when you were a child.
No, no. I'm
Mm.
I was told that it really started at around 3 years old, the obesity. I look at pictures of me as an infant, before I could walk, and I was obese. So, and then I hear stories, right, about how I used to nurse and how I used to want to eat all the time. So obviously I was not only in an environment that was a very stressful environment and sent me to comfort and connection and via nursing, but also once I was able to start feeding myself, I had enough fear or enough of pain inside of me that I was looking for that numbing from a very young age. So I grew up, in the late 70s and all the way through the 80s and 90s. And that is, as we talked about in episode 1, that is the boon of the processed food
Mhm.
growth, right? The boon of the marketing, the boon of the production, and the introduction of so many processed foods. I was in lockstep with that. I would, go to the grocery store and ask for the cereals. I would eat them on Saturday mornings in front of the TV with my,
Oh, yeah.
character friends. That we talked about commercials going from 50 to 500 in a given Saturday morning. I was, as far as my generation, in lockstep with that whole growth of the marketing and
Oh,
growth
yeah.
of the industry.
You remember the toys in the cereal?
Absolutely,
Oh, I
absolutely.
love
And my
toys
weight
in,
grew.
yeah,
My weight grew with all of those, marketing campaigns.
they do a good job.
Yeah.
They're very, they're very
Making
skilled.
money and making illness, absolutely, they do a great
Yeah,
job.
yeah,
For me,
yeah.
I was back in the 80s, I was one of the one or two kids that was overweight in class. And in high school, I was maybe the one or two, maybe three kids that were overweight. But my family, we all struggle with processed food and food addiction. It might look like and take different forms. There's alcoholism also in my family. And that's why I say, and I said it in the first episode, I'll say it again, I easily could have been an alcoholic. I just, for me, dessert tasted way better and it was more acceptable at an early age to eat dessert than it was to drink alcohol. And I liked the taste of dessert way better. So for me,
Hmm.
6, 7 years old, I knew I was in pain. I knew I wanted food for comfort and it was acceptable. So I began sneaking food and overeating as early as I could. As I grew up and became a young adult, in social situations, I would dread them because it meant I had to regulate myself around food, right? And so I would eat normally at these events, but of course there was nothing normal because then I would go home and binge, or I would binge on the way home, or I'd binge before I went. It was just really, really, my behaviors around food were really dysfunctional. And I thought I was hiding it, right? I thought I was fooling people because I was so deep in denial. And here I was walking around 300-400+ pounds. And I thought I was fooling people that I didn't have a problem with food. And the denial was so deep in me. The denial of wanting the food, of getting the food, the denial of when I could eat again and what I was eating. And it was like a roller coaster. And as my addiction progressed, I became a different person, right? When I was in the food, I was Dr. Jekyll, and when I was out of the food, I was Mr. Hyde. So I had these two different personalities. I
Yeah.
became a rageaholic. I became I was an alcoholic, attempting to be sober and dry drunk off of food. And it made my addiction worse. So I began to binge and restrict and all kinds of things, trying to control my food intake. And, it just set me deeper into the illness.
Out of curiosity, were your parents concerned about, did they have weight? Like I remember my parents dieted all the time. They were very conscientious of their weight. They would weigh and keep a chart every day of what their weight was. And they were very weight conscientious. So I was just curious if you had that in your home too,
That's a great
or
question. They were very weight conscientious and very weight judgmental, but they themselves struggled. So my mother was obese and struggled with her weight, and she had ups and downs and a new program, so to speak, that she would try here or there. And my father was struggled with his weight at one point, but hated so much about obesity and body, size, that he went to the other side of the extreme, where he, his whole self-worth and worth of others was based on what they looked like. And so that was a whole process for him and affected all the family, where it began judging based on what they looked like. So I was constantly judged and constantly criticized for the way I looked and what I chose to eat or didn't eat, by any and all members of the family on both sides growing up. So it became this, not only was there's this addiction that I had that I didn't understand, but then it very quickly got linked to shame of being who I was.
oh, it's unavoidable, right? It's a setup for shame. It's shame's favorite
Yes.
activity.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
interesting. So, first of all, I'm sorry that you experienced that. That's a bummer.
It
That's
is.
a big old bummer. And I'm just sorry that that happened to you. I do believe that people are born addicted.
Mm,
Totally believe that what mothers eat while
mm,
babies are in utero
absolutely.
passes through that placental barrier.
Mhm.
And I think I would had that propensity for sugar too from the minute I came into this earth. Once you get slapped and start screaming, I was screaming for sugar.
Yeah.
Give me my first fix. I'm ready
And
for it.
isn't that interesting? It's true.
Yeah, I don't ever remember not craving it even. I knew I liked it from a kid. So they do a good job. The processed food industry does a good job in addicting our brains and making us behave exactly as they want us to behave. So
Yeah.
anyway, who's
Yeah.
depressed out there? Raise their hand. So we're going to turn this conversation
We're gonna turn it
around
around.
though,
Yes.
because the next thing I want to talk about is there hope? Where's the turning point for you? Do you want to tell me yours or do you want me to tell you mine?
Well, I want to just add one thing, and then I want you to tell me your turnaround, because I just want to add one thing. In my recovery, I've realized that you talked about when you're born, you're slapped on the butt, and you cry. We are right. We come out of the womb addicted based on or not based on what our mothers chose to eat, and also our genetic code. For me, and I learned this recently. I had a very traumatic birth.
Oh,
I was actually in fetal distress, cord wrapped around my neck, and went from a natural childbirth to a cesarean section because I was in such distress and my heart rate was dropping so much. So I came into the world. My mother immediately she was hemorrhaging and immediately had to be whisked to
mm,
surgery. And I was once the cord was removed, I was fine. But I had this really traumatic birth, and they say that it can really set you up for a lifetime of fear and also what the oxygen deprivation does to an infant, and also the lack of connection, right, when you're born, the lack of skin on skin contact, the lack of connection between mother and baby in the minutes right after birth. I never had
fascinating.
that, so it really contributed to this mindset of lack and not enough and searching and fear, and that it was that fertile soil that allowed my addiction to really grow. And so that's why we talk about it being multifaceted. It's genetic, it's chemical, it's biological and physiological, and it's also based on emotion and a life experience that can add to it and really make a small fire grow into a wildfire.
That's fascinating. Just one quick question that I can't stop thinking about. I know you have one sibling, a
Mhm.
brother.
Yes,
Does he struggle with weight too?
yes, yes, he has, and not so much early in life, but once he became an adult.
And has he gone through the recovery process or
He
where is he on his journey?
Now he is, in the last year, he has found a new lease on real food, and he is
Nice.
in an amazing recovery journey of his own. He's feeling wonderful. He's seeing all kinds of benefits. And that's why I love this idea. There is hope at any point. My brother is in his 50s. I adore him. We're very close, and I was cheering him on for years to try to find his way out, and he has finally gotten sick and tired of being sick and tired, his words.
Hmm.
And I'm just beyond excited for him. And he's finding his way to real food. He is feeling so much better. And his whole life is changing around him. I mean,
Oh,
he got a promotion at a job. He got, just family relationships are changing. His energy level is changing. He's giving back to the community. He's thinking different than he has before. In the way that he interacts with people. And I just love it because he's got such a huge heart, and he's got such a heart for service. My brother, he always has. And now he has the energy, and he's getting the health that allows him to live that out.
beautiful. I don't know him, but I love him already. I'm choked up. I
You would. He's
just
great.
seeing people come out of this, it's just literally there is nothing in this world that makes me happier. So, do you want to talk about your turning point? When
Uh,
did when did you know that there was an opportunity for a way out.
I
When
would say 2017 for me, it was a solid. I was almost 10 years into recovery for me, right? I had been, I knew what food could give me, bad and good. I knew that, I had lost a whole bunch of weight by that point. I thought I had this new lease on life, but I was really just so miserable. Um, and in 2017, I saw a presentation given by Dr. Jonah Ifland, and she talked a lot about, these indications or indicators of processed food addiction. And one of the things she talked about was emotional dysregulation, or when you would have mood swings after eating. And she said that those aren't mood swings. Those aren't just emotions. Those are actually withdrawal symptoms. You are
hmm
addict and withdrawal. And I remember I was listening to it on YouTube, and I stopped and I looked at the screen and I thought, oh my gosh, that's me. Like I act that way after I eat certain meals and certain foods, and certainly after, my junk food binges. And I thought, oh my gosh, like I'm an addict in withdrawal. And I thought to myself, there are foods that I really cannot have, because it's just, I'm an addict around them. I'm like an alcoholic with food. And by that point, I knew that at my deepest part of the addiction, I was severely alcoholic with food. Like, it was every day I was getting ragingly drunk on food, right? But I had found my way in 8, 9 years of recovery. I had found my way to a much more, I thought, balanced place, but I wasn't. I was just swinging between two extremes. The extreme of let me restrict and let me be very, very mindful and almost orthorexic about food, and let me go back to the other way of, I'm just going to have this one binge on a Saturday night cheat night, and we'll be good.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. It was still a prison. So 2017 is where first heard Dr. Iflin's talk, and I was able to have the turning point that, oh my gosh, it's an addiction. And that was a game changer. How about you, Paige?
Yeah, I think, well, you and I met in the same recovery community, and I was in there and doing an exercise on an upcoming family event. So, one of the things that I have learned is that you need to put some thought into activities before you go where you know there's going to be triggering. And
Mm.
so it was an exercise where you kind of visualize what the event is going to look like and what you're going to do, and
Yeah.
even down to times and exit strategies and things like that. And I had only been in this recovery community a couple weeks, and I heard him talking about this, and I'm not very woo woo, and I'm not a highly emotional person. And I'm like, I don't know, this just seems like a bunch of hooey. But I did, I wrote it down what the visualization of this big family party was going to be like. And at all of our family parties, everybody eats way too much the first time. Everybody goes back for the second time, and then we start on dessert, right?
Mhm.
And that was my pattern. I liked it. I mean, I was miserable. I was in pain inside. It's so interesting because you're in pain,
Yeah,
and as you're eating, you're in pain, but you still want more. That's why
I
the
know.
addiction is such a son of a gun,
I
because
know.
it just keeps telling you, just get more. You still want more, even though your stomach could be in severe pain, ready to
Oh
burst.
yeah, been
You
there.
still that itch in your brain, that drive to get more, still is there and will not leave you away. I just want to say, bugger off, man. So I had this visualized that I was going to do something I'd never done in my life at 58 years old. I was going to go to, I think it was a birthday party for my husband, and I wasn't going to have the dessert. I didn't care about anything else.
Mhm.
I wasn't going to put any other restrictions. That I had the bandwidth to do this one thing that I'd never done in my life. And it
Mhm.
was hard, but I got through it. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? It literally changed my world. That
Uh-huh.
one event changed the rest of my life. I got up from the table. I started helping wash the dishes. I went to the bathroom and took a few deep breaths and
Yep.
removed myself for a minute to settle myself back down, try to focus on playing with the kids. And
Mhm.
when I got home, I thought, I didn't die.
Yeah.
What do you know? I got through that.
Yeah.
and I feel pretty good.
Hmm.
So that for me was the turning point,
Hmm.
and I've never looked back.
Yeah.
So the question is then, does it get better? Do you always have to, will it always be that hard? Is every event I go to now that hard that I have to do that much preparation
Great
each
question.
time?
Great
I
point.
it does get better. It
Yeah.
does get easier. Do I still put thought into everything I do? Absolutely, because I ain't
Absolutely.
a fool. I don't want to set myself up for anything crazy to happen. So as I've said before, I will always be in recovery, just like people that with drugs, alcohol, shopping, whatever, you always have to be aware and
Yeah.
alert. But as you continue to exercise these recovery muscles, they get stronger and
Hmm.
you become more adept at quickly getting under control, and you have these new normals, these new factory settings in your brain. And as you get off sugar, the cravings are so much less. I still have them,
Hmm.
but they're more manageable.
Yes.
So, does it get better? Yes. What would you say?
Yeah, I totally agree. It does get better. And the reason it gets better for me, and I think based on what you just shared, I think you would agree, it gets better because I stay consistent with how I approach my recovery every day.
Yes.
We talked about in episode 1, we talked about our branches, right? Our branches of recovery. We very intentionally for our podcast logo chose the tree of life. And there's lots of reasons for it. But the branches that we are going to weave into, right, that theme of the tree, are really around education, connection, attitude, and thought life, food, movement, spirituality. These are the foundations. When I am consistent in those areas, it gets better and it gets easier where I don't even think about it, right? I don't even, as long as I'm
Yes.
prepared and I'm consistent in my behaviors, for me, I can be in a highly triggering, highly, crave inducing food environment and not even be affected.
Yeah.
Um, but when I'm not consistent in those foundational behaviors or those
Good point.
foundational actions,
Great
it
point.
gets harder.
Yeah. When those other things are out of balance, recovery is harder.
Yeah.
So, and I want to say, we've talked about how addiction is progressive,
Yeah.
recovery is progressive as well.
Beautifully.
So, as you continue to progress in recovery and stay consistent, as Jamie is saying, it just becomes our new normal, and it does get easier. So there's hope. That's
Yeah.
that's what we want to leave with today. There is hope, and we are here to bring hope through very simple methods. Recovery is fun. We're here to make it fun. If you're not having fun, we're doing something wrong. So
Yeah.
we have all kinds of programs. We're going to provide health coaching, individual and group training. And you can also find us on Facebook and Instagram as landing pages for, we're going to share food recipes, and we want you to share those with us too. Our only stipulation is all non-processed food. We do not promote any certain food plans. Our food plan is simply whatever fits you best, as
Yes.
long as it's non-processed or very minimally processed food. You're
Yes.
going to find success, whether with us or on your own. You're going to find success.
That's right.
So that
Yeah.
is what we are here to talk about. We've got a couple of viewer questions that we like to end up with. So I'm just going to go ahead and launch into that, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Um, First one, how long will it take before I'll know if it's possible for me to get control over my food? And I'm going to rephrase this person's question, and
Sure.
I'm going to ask you a question. Is it possible for everybody?
Oh, 100%. Everybody, because it's not about what's inside. It's about controlling what's inside, because think about it, why we never see, I love this question. Why do we never see an overweight deer in the wild? Right? Because
They
go ahead.
they don't have any cues and triggers around them. They don't have access. They're eating all natural food.
That's right.
They wouldn't even think about it.
That's right. There's not trees made of cake or bushes made of pizza, right? there's only whole real food that their body knows what to do with, and also that their body cues them on when they've had enough. But if you were to take those deer we've all seen them in the zoos or in maybe in enclosed environments where they are getting more processed or hyper palatable foods or more palatable foods,
Yeah,
right?
our house pets, our dog,
Exactly.
my dog.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You take them and you give them these food environments, right, that are filled with more hyperpalatable foods, they will overeat because that's exactly what they're supposed to do. There's not that they're supposed to overeat. They're going to eat more because their body will cue them to want more of these hyperpalatable foods. So that's why when you clean, and and I clean is a loaded word, but you really investigate and open yourself up to improving your environment and controlling that, the food takes care of itself.
Yeah. I have to tell you, so we had this little dog, Riley. I loved her. She was
Uh-huh.
a mutt.
Uh-huh.
She lived 14 and 3/4 of a year. So, but she was like a child to me.
Uh-huh.
So I'd never had a dog like that. So I wanted to do all these things right. And so for her treats, I used to feed her these little baby carrot sticks.
Mhm.
And my husband, his love language is giving food. So he would buy these dog treats to give her. Well, once she started on those, guess what? She didn't want my carrot sticks anymore. In
Right.
fact, one day I was leaning down to her to say, "Here, Riley, come get your carrot sticks." She walked up to me and she went like this with her paw and went, and she slapped that carrot stick out of my hand and then just trotted over to the cupboard where she knew the
The
dog
treat.
treats were, and sat down and stared at my husband, and then she'd do this deep breathing at him. The eyeball laser beams.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
She's done with carrot sticks.
Yeah. Isn't that wild? It's wild.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yes,
and she was tubby. Yeah,
it
so
is. It
that
is
that just made
wild.
me that story reminded me. That's so funny about the deer. So
But it's
true.
so
So
true.
yes. How long will it take? There's a spectrum of how long it will take. It doesn't matter how long it takes. We only care that you start and you don't quit
Exactly.
and that
Exactly.
there is hope.
Yes.
Okay, we've
Yes.
got one more.
Everyone's different.
Yeah. Everyone's journey is different, but it's perfect for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, okay, this is a hot one.
Yeah.
This is I healthy food costs so much. Isn't it more expensive to eat clean than just to give into processed food deals that are out there? Ooh, do you want me to
Yeah. Good
start?
question. I hear this a lot.
I'm on fire.
Go for
I'm
it.
on fire. So yes, I hear this a lot too. You're right. A package of ramen noodles is cheaper. And that is a statement that the addiction makes because the addiction speaks in half truths, which is worse than a lie. It never tells the whole story. So while ramen noodles are cheaper on the front end, I'm not picking on them, it's just
Yeah.
easy.
Just the example.
It's extremely more expensive on the back end. So, you know what's expensive to me? Pre-diabetes medication, joint pain, not feeling well, missed days at work, having to buy more clothes, having to spend extra gas to go get your favorite binge food.
Mhm.
All those things add up. And the expense of the toll on your mental health, your relationships, that is costly. That's costly if
Absolutely.
you have a relationship that doesn't work out because you can't get your act together because you're so in the grips of addiction. It's extremely expensive. So, is it better to spend, I don't know how much more it would be, $20 a week for real food versus processed food? I don't know the statistics for that. But overall, it is much cheaper to invest upfront in your health because the most expensive thing in your life is if you do not feel well. If you are not a well
That's right.
person in whatever aspect, it is extremely costly, not only to you, but every single person around you, every relationship, your employer, your spouse, your children, highly, highly expensive.
That's right. That's right. I totally agree. I agree with everything you said. It really is. So, I've had people say to me, it's so extreme the way you eat. it's so extreme that you have
Mhm.
so many boundaries around specific food groups or and for me, they're calling dessert a food group, by the way. It's their terms, not the actual terms. But I just, I look at them and I say, what feels extreme to me is having to lay on a table in a operating room and have my
Yeah.
chest cracked open and valves reconnected to my heart
Mhm.
because of the food choices I made. That
Mhm.
feels more extreme than just saying no to the dessert, as you call it, a food group. I just call it, something that is a highly addictive, hyperpalatable food that makes me sick. So it's so interesting how people look at this. And you know what I say about, the way that I eat? I invest my money into the food that keeps me healthy, and I invest no money into any of the other medications that are required for to manage lifestyle diseases.
Yeah.
Have any
Yeah.
lifestyle diseases to
Yeah.
manage
I don't know what the statistics are, but it's like 5 medications by the time you're, I'm sorry, I can't
in your
remember what
40s.
age.
In your
Yeah.
40s.
Yeah, that's expensive. I have
Very.
a client that, they know how I eat. They struggle with food and they like to say, "Oh, you're crazy." And the problem I'm thinking is, at this stage, I would just want to have fun and enjoy my life. And so usually my response to them is nothing because they're obviously not ready and I
Right.
just live by example. But so I just realized we have a different definition of fun. Their
Mm.
idea of fun is eating whatever they want, not taking care of themselves. This is a person who's really struggling with health. My definition is fun is not being on medication. Every year for my birthday, I like to go to Pikes Peak and hike a 14,000-foot mountain. It's 13 miles. It takes us 8 hours. That's fun to me.
Mhm.
Not eating and having regret or pain in my gut. That's what's fun for me. Being able to get down on the floor and play with my grandkids. That's
Yes,
what's fun for me. So it's just a matter of definition of what you think is fun. That's what I've decided.
that's
And
right.
I want to live fun my way.
And you said something, in one of our meetings about this podcast. You said, you know, we hear the term people say, and it's even used in the media and in the advertising, the party in my mouth, right? This food is a
Yeah.
party in my mouth.
Yeah.
And it
Hmm.
really is. It's a party in your mouth for maybe 5 seconds, and it's a funeral for,
Forever. Forever.
exactly, weeks and months and years of pain. So, and maybe potentially, early death, right? So you
Oh, for
really,
sure.
once I realized I would time myself how long it would take me to eat those meals when I was on my binge and restrict cycle in middle of my recovery, uh, early recovery, I timed myself how long it would take, maybe 20-25 minutes to eat a meal, a binge meal. And
You're paying for days.
days and days and days. And then of course I'd go to, my annual doctor visit, and things would be kind of wonky and off. And he'd be like, well, everything's really good except your liver functions a little bit off. And I mean, everything else looks okay, but this is your cholesterol's a little out of whack. Well, I was eating, you know, a tub of ice cream every week. So yeah,
Hmm.
cholesterol's going to be out of whack and my liver
Yeah.
is going to be off because I probably have a little bit of liver issue going on. Like, it's so fascinating that your body knows exactly how to take care of itself,
Yeah.
unless kill it with processed foods or other
Yeah.
lifestyle.
Yeah, I heard an expert in the industry say the other day that she has clients come and say, I can eat a bag of Doritos and I'm fine and I going on and no problems, no ramifications. And she said, I say to them, if you can eat a little bag of Doritos and you still have peace and it doesn't drive you to do, other things, have the Doritos. But she said, more often than not, these foods that
Mm.
are designed to addict our brains and encourage us to eat more and more and more, they do not invite peace into the brain. They invite panic, anxiety, worry,
Right.
distraction. So that is one way you can tell to build your own food list. We want to help
Exactly.
people build their own food list. If
Yes.
you are eating something that doesn't bring peace, then that helps you narrow the field. It's a gift to have that information.
Absolutely. Great point.
Great.
Great point.
Yeah.
And the peace is big. And we're not talking about peace right afterwards because you're on a food high, right? We're talking about true peace, calm, serene life experience where you're able to focus on other things besides food.
Right. And you know what? I never had peace, even on my food high. I actually was in severe pain, panic, anxiety. It was probably some of the worst pain. It's trauma. It's
Yeah.
trauma. Those binges before, during, and after, all
Me too.
trauma. Nothing but extreme pain. So there might be just 1 second of bliss in there, but after that, it's pure hell. It's
Yeah.
living in bonds in hell.
Yeah. And
So-
that's why I like to, the answer to this question unequivocally is yes, it gets better, because when you learn to live life and align your food choices to what makes you feel good and what brings you peace and what brings you clarity and what brings you joy, it can't help but get better. Everything gets better.
Yeah. So does healthy food cost more? I'm gonna say no, because it's apples and oranges. We're comparing
Pun intended.
Yeah, it's a bigger answer. It's just not the difference between a 49-cent bag of processed something and a $1 piece of fruit. There's a lot more to
Yep.
the answer.
And we're going to go into more detail on this, guys. There's a whole episode.
Oh yeah.
About the cost,
huge.
the cost of junk food.
It costs you your life.
Mhm.
The price is your life. So that's a good place to end on. Anything else you want to share before we?
Nothing. I'm just happy to be here. Happy to talk about this stuff, Paige. It's just so important. And I really want people to feel like they have a place that they can show up and ask these great questions.
Yes.
And listen to our vulnerability and hear our transparency around recovery, because we want them to know that they can get better too.
Yeah, if you want to go to our Facebook and leave a question that you would like for us to address, please leave a comment on our Facebook page.
Or in the chat. You can also write it in the chat. That's something that we'll take and incorporate in one of our future episodes as well.
Perfect. I love the peace sign
Yeah.
because it says verbal ventilation. So
Yeah.
when we're here talking about it, the verbal ventilation, it helps invite the peace. So peace out, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Peace out. Take care.